what to make of Americans' initial reactions to Paul Ryan.
Paul Ryan could put Catholics and younger voters into play.
And the Paul Ryan pick could make Wisconsin even more up for grabs. I'm Frank Newport, Gallup Editor-in-Chief.
I'm Susan Page, Washington Bureau Chief for USA Today.
And this is Election Matters. Well, Susan, we've been talking about it for a long time, the vice presidential pick. A lot of us thought it would be closer to the beginning of the Republican convention, but right there while the Olympics were still going on, right? Romney announces Saturday morning that it is Congressman Paul Ryan of Wisconsin. Very interesting choice. We were out Sunday night and did an initial reaction. We should point out it's an initial reaction, but we got some initial feedback, and in particular, we can put it in historical context. First of all, Americans' initial reactions to Paul Ryan compared to how they initially reacted to other candidates, not so swimming for Paul Ryan.
You know, really the most tepid response to a vice presidential pick since Dan Quayle, almost a quarter century ago, and Dan Quayle encountered tough waters from the very start, so that's not really a comparison that the Romney people were looking for.
A lot of people talk about Sarah Palin not doing well as a vice presidential pick, but her initial impact on the public was actually slightly more positive than Paul Ryan's, right?
And we should note that 58% of Americans told us that they either had never heard of Paul Ryan or that they didn't know enough about him to have an opinion. So there's a lot of room there for him to define himself, but this initial reaction, I think, not so great.
Yeah, and you say define himself. I think, of course, both campaigns are now going to be trying to define him, particularly the Obama people. They'll be working very hard, like they've been doing with Romney, to cast a negative light on Paul Ryan. And, of course, he's out there now campaigning Ryan, and he'll be trying to put a very positive pitch on it himself. So these are very initial reactions, and a lot can change, obviously. And, of course, at the convention, he'll have a big role, be able to make his speech. When will it be, like Wednesday nights, when the VP usually makes the speech?
Yes, that's right.
So we'll see what happens after that.
Yeah.
Susan, we did ask the public, does this choice make you more or less likely to vote for the ticket, the Republican ticket, and the results?
Not a lot of difference. I think 17% said more likely, 12% said less likely, and 2/3, 66%, said it wasn't going to have any impact on the vote. That's very consistent, even with more popular vice presidential picks, that most Americans, an overwhelming majority, say it's not going to really matter to them when it comes to who they vote for in November.
And that's what polling has showed in the past. It's hard to find evidence that a Veep pick really makes it. I mean, Lyndon Johnson, did he bring Texas to John Kennedy? Maybe he did, but it's hard to find evidence in recent elections that the Veep makes a huge difference in either direction. And that's what the public's telling us, right?
That's right. And yet there are some things about Paul Ryan that could have some impact on this race. One is that he's a Catholic. You know, it's interesting. This means that both vice presidential nominees are Catholics. This is the first time that a Republican ticket has not had a Protestant on it because, of course, Mitt Romney is a Mormon, Paul Ryan is a Catholic.
As a small aside, none of the four are veterans. That's been commented on before, which is unusual. It's been a long time.
First time in 80 years.
80 years. That's very amazing. Of course,
that
that
no one
reflects,
on either ticket, on either side.
Yeah, at either ticket has been a better. The Catholic vote, you mentioned the fact that we now have two Catholic Veeps going at each other, Biden versus Paul. The key is that vote is very much up for grabs. I mean, we have them virtually even. They're kind of like independents. We know that when you separate them out, white Catholics do swing for Romney. Hispanic Catholics do swing for Obama. But when you put them all together, they're certainly very much kind of in the middle. So is it possible that this pick could make a difference for the Catholic vote? We don't know.
I think it is possible. And it's possible it could make a difference with young people as well. Of course, that's been an area of great strength. He's 42 years old.
Okay, Paul is 42.
And of course, we know that Barack Obama's done very well with voters under 30. Now there's at least someone who is closer to that age group and someone who maybe will have an ability to come across to young people. Of course, in contrast, big generational contrast with Joe Biden, who is 69.
And Romney's in his mid-60s. Obama just turned 51, right? But Ryan's 42, so that's quite young. So we'll see if it makes a difference. As you say, Romney doesn't do well among young voters. Maybe it'll help in that direction. One of the big things that's going to come up, of course, is Medicare, because Ryan's plan, he's a wonk, and his budget plan that he put out certainly suggests plans for big changes in Medicare for those that are not 55 when the plan is enacted. So the Obama people are really going after that. And we know from our data that people recognize there are big problems with Medicare and Social Security in the long term. So in that sense, that Ryan's onto something, but we also know from our data that Americans don't like the idea of changing Medicare at all. So the Obama people really have something to go at when they try to tell Americans, hey, this guy and Romney, if elected, might really dramatically change something you don't want changed.
And you know, if Paul Ryan gives the Republicans a chance, some inroads perhaps with younger voters, he also gives Democrats some inroads with older voters who tilt strongly to the Republican Party, because we know that a lot of seniors are very concerned that Medicare and Social Security not be changed in fundamental ways. And Paul Ryan's budget plan would mean big changes, especially to the Medicare program, moving it for future retirees into more of a voucher program.
Yeah, so even though seniors wouldn't be affected, they reiterate that point, they're still concerned about it. Although again, it's this big picture, little picture. Big picture, yes, we know changes have to be made. Small picture, hey, don't make these changes right now, or at least in these ways. So that's going to be very interesting to follow. Wisconsin in play. Well, we have it as one of our swing states, so clearly it's not strong red or blue, but could this Wisconsin candidate, Paul Ryan, help bring it more into play?
Well, I think it could. Now, we should remember that Paul Ryan's a member of the House. He has never run statewide in the state of Wisconsin. He's won 7 elections.
And it's a smaller state.
It is a smaller state.
You know,
and it's a state that Barack Obama won pretty easily 4 years ago, but it's one that's really moved to the Republican side in the governorship and the state legislature since then. So I think we should definitely count this, as a state that's in play.
Our Gallup data show that it's a 49% job approval rating for Barack Obama in the first 6 months of the year. In Wisconsin, 46 was Obama's average, so that's just 3 points above average, so a slight tilt to the blue side, but that still puts it in that middle category. And the same thing on voter ID, when we broke that out based on our Gallup analysis of the first 6 months, they're slightly more Democratic, but kind of right in the middle there. So clearly they're a state that could go either way.
One thing to remember, though, is it's been since Lyndon Johnson in 1960 delivered Texas for John Kennedy that a vice presidential nominee has clearly made a state swing toward a ticket, so it is a very tall order.
We'll wait and see what happens. And by next week, we'll have a week's worth of Paul Ryan out there campaigning under our belt, so we'll be able to see from our tracking data if it's made a difference on the ballot, and we'll see what else we learn by that point. But it's a very exciting time in the campaign. Next step will be the conventions beginning the 27th in August. I'm Frank Newport, Gallup Editor-in-Chief.
I'm Susan Page, Washington Bureau Chief for USA Today.
And this is Election Matters.